This is PBS. On the next National Geographic special, Hawaii, the ultimate island paradise. We've made this paradise our playground and paid the price. Now the race is on. Can we rescue this exotic oasis before it's too late? Hawaii, Strangers in Paradise, a new National Geographic special.
See the National Geographic special Wednesday at 8.
Next on Mystery, we welcome the return of the world's most famous detective.
My lord, your sister has vanished. How and why, we do not know. But I've reason to believe that she's in the greatest danger.
Not even Mr. Sherlock Holmes will be able to work miracles.
Nobody crosses me and gets the better of it.
So many have said so, yet here I am.
Jeremy Brett stars in the casebook of Sherlock Holmes on Mystery.
Watch Mystery, Thursday at 9. You're watching WETA Stereo 26 in Washington, D.C., broadcasting to your community in suburban Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. The programs you enjoy on WETA are made possible in part by grants from Pepco, the electric company serving Washington since 1876. And Fannie Mae, 50 years of opening doors for American home buyers.
This week on TechnoPolitics. The U.S. government banned Mexican tuna in order to protect dolphins, and that's put a crimp in George Bush's plans for a North American free trade zone. It's just one skirmish in an emerging political struggle between those who want global environmental regulation and those who want free trade. Jessica Mathews of the World Resources Institute and syndicated columnist Robert Novak trade off. And Lester Brown, founder of the World Watch Institute, talks presidential politics. Which candidate does he think will get the green vote in 1992?
I'd say the environmental media...
And the latest Tinseltown news from veteran Wall Street Journal reporter Bill Paul. Bart Simpson has gone green, with a little help from Hollywood's environmental activists.
Major funding for TechnoPolitics is provided by these organizations.
Welcome to TechnoPolitics. I'm Tim White. President Bush wants to turn the Western Hemisphere into a free trade zone, but some critics say that free trade will set back U.S. environmental laws. In fact, they say it's already happening. 10 months ago, the U.S. government banned the importation of Mexican tuna, claiming that Mexican fishermen were slaughtering dolphins. Now, that embargo has been ruled a violation of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or the GATT. Now, the Bush administration must choose between maintaining the embargo or upholding international law. You might say it's a choice between environmental protection and environmental protectionism. In the open sea, tuna can grow up to 5 feet long. In the international political arena, they may loom large enough to hold up the global movement toward freer trade. 10 months ago, Congress voted to block tuna imports from Mexico on the grounds that the fish were caught using drift nets, a technique that needlessly slaughters dolphins and other sea life. U.S. tuna companies have already switched to nets that don't harm dolphins, a fact displayed on the labels of tuna cans. Mexico challenged the U.S. embargo as a violation of international trade law and brought the matter before a panel of judges of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trades, the GATT. They ruled for Mexico, with a broad decision that environmentalists say conflicts with international treaties on endangered species, air pollution, and global climate change, all in the name of free trade. Complying with the GATT ruling could even reverse the international ban on trade in ivory an embargo designed to protect African elephants. GATT was formed 45 years ago, long before environmental concerns were part of the global agenda. Headquartered in Brussels, the GATT was designed to regulate the world's trading system. It's here that more than 100 nations come when they want reductions in tariffs and other trade barriers. The current GATT negotiations are called the Uruguay round. They began in 1986 and are supposed to be completed this year, but are stalled on a number of issues. Frustration with the GATT led the Bush administration to try a different approach toward free trade, a bilateral agreement with Mexico that would be the first step toward a hemispheric free trade zone. By bringing the tuna ban before the GATT, Mexico has opened the door to new and difficult issues in the quest for a free trade agreement. And the U.S. now must choose whether to comply with the GATT ruling or obey other international treaties and its own domestic laws.
Will the pursuit of free trade degrade America's environment? Trading off are Jessica Mathews, Vice President of the World Resources Institute, and Robert Novak, half of the syndicated columnist team, Evans and Novak. Welcome to both of you. Well, the GATT, as now interpreted, Jessica, says that you can't keep Mexican tuna out of the United States. You have to let it in. Are environmentalists concerned?
Oh, tremendously, as is Congress, because if this ruling stands, there are literally dozens of U.S. laws that would be technically illegal under this ruling. What it said was that countries can use trade to protect resources within their own borders. We can use trade laws to protect our atmosphere up there, but not outside our own borders, as though the border made a difference to the environment. So that laws that protect elephants and migrating birds and fisheries and forests and biological diversity and even international treaties like the Chlorofluorocarbon Treaty, the Montreal Treaty, would technically be invalidated under this ruling.
Well, should borders then just be suspended, Bob Novak, in order to accommodate the environmentalists?
No, they certainly shouldn't. You know, I know the environmentalists are very sincere about the dreaded Mexican tuna coming in. It would really ruin this country if that were to happen. But I'm afraid the environmentalists are being used by the protectionists. You know, protectionism is going out of style, and there's a lot of people with vested interests to keep these borders sacrosanct so that the goods do not have a free international course. And in the last debate in Congress on the Mexican trade bill, they found it very hard to make any convincing arguments, and they found they rung up the flag of environmentalism. It didn't work, but it was the only thing that gave some respectability to the argument of the protectionists and the AFL-CIO. So I would say that to the protectionists that you may be sincere in wanting to make sure that these trade laws have international ramifications, but I think you're being used. Are you being used, Jessica?
Oh, this issue is vastly bigger than that, as I suggested. I mean, what we've got with the GATT is a 45-year-old treaty that predates all of these issues. I mean, we had a tiny human presence on the planet relative to what we have now when the GATT treaty was written, and none of these issues were imagined. So, I mean, for example, the Montreal Treaty has nothing to do with protectionism. Now, environmentalism can be used, as Bob says, by protectionists. Then that's a problem, but the big issue is vastly larger and won't go away much as we wish it to.
The problem is that you have a lot of people, and I'll go back to exactly what I said in the first place, who do not want free trade. This is the AFL-CIO. This is the Democratic National Committee. This is the Democratic Party's leadership. And I think it is pathetic that they have hooked on to GATT and the whole question of tuna fish as a way to impose their. You talk about last year's issues, Jessica. This is 19th century. This is mercantilism,
no,
and you're being their
This is the New World Order. This is an integrated global economy in which what every economy does matters to others' economy. What other people do, God knows, Mexico's behavior affects our air.
President Bush is in a tough situation on this because he wants the free trade agreement with Mexico.
Right.
On the other hand, we've got an embargo that the environmentalists really want to keep in place about tuna, keeping that Mexican tuna out. Now, what should the president do? Should he suspend the embargo on Mexican tuna?
I think he should, because I think he should have him go take a walk, because the president has the people behind him. He has the Democratic governor of Texas. is behind me. Ann Richards is saying that the Mexican Free Trade Agreement is the answer, and she's quite right, for prosperity on both sides of the Rio Grande. And the idea of following it up with some kind of worry about how the... I'll tell you, most people don't care how the tuna was caught. They really don't.
Well, I'll tell you, the president doesn't have the option to do that because the embargo was enforced by the courts. Okay, it was done against the administration's desires. Anyway, they did it unwillingly. So that's not